All right, so today we are going to work on some low carb pumpkin pie. So the way we're going to do this is using monk fruit instead of sugar, and we're also not going to use a crust. We're also going to increase the protein and cut down on the fat by using some FairLife skim milk instead of evaporated milk, and I'm going to show you how to do that.
Cool.
So we are going to start with our evaporated milk. So the way we're going to do this is measure out 3 cups of our FairLife skim milk. Now this is way over the 10% ratio, and this is where the protein in your pumpkin pie is going to come from. So we're going to measure out the 3 cups, and then we're going to put this over medium to medium high heat. It takes about an hour of reducing. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of our pie ready while we wait for all of that to reduce and become evaporated milk. Basically what evaporated milk is when you evaporate the water out of milk. So now that that is going, we're just going to clean off our workspace a little bit, and we are going to get started on the rest of our filling. So first step, we're going to need our can opener, and we need to open our can of pumpkin. So now that our pumpkin is open, we need to grab our bowl. And we're going to add our pumpkin into the bowl, using a spatula to make sure that we get as much out of the can as we can. The recipe we're using is actually just the recipe off of the back of the can. It's nothing special or fancy. We just swapped out a couple ingredients for some healthier options. So now we're going to add our monk fruit sweetener. This is 0 glycemic. It is 0 net carbs. It is 4 carbs in total per serving. So we need 3/4 of a cup of that monk fruit sweetener here. So now we're just referring back to our recipe on the back of the can, and we're going to go ahead and add our salt, which is 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then instead of measuring out all of those individual spices, I just take some pumpkin pie spice and do 2 teaspoons of that. Just makes it a little bit easier. It doesn't take as much time, and it tastes just as good. So now we're going to go ahead and add 2 eggs. I use farm fresh eggs because that's what I like, but if the best you have is white eggs, then that is totally fine. So now my secret to the silkiest, smoothest pumpkin pie that you can ever imagine is typically to use a food processor, but today I am going to go ahead and use my stick blender or immersion blender. If you don't have one of these, feel free to use your regular blender, your shake blender, a food processor, or just whisk it by hand. This is just going to break the pumpkin down a little further than it comes in the can and give you a silkier, smoother texture to your food. Clearly I'm having difficulty with this, so give me just a minute to get the blender actually assembled because this KitchenAid one is a little tight. But now that we've got that working, we're gonna go ahead and turn it on the lowest speed and just give a quick mix. I'm sorry you can't see it better, but this is how we get that good, smooth, silky pumpkin pie. Okay, so we are all done. So we still need to add our evaporated milk in here, but that's going to take about another hour. So I went ahead and sped that up for you, and then off to the side you can see I'm working on our Christmas meal of cranberry sauce and stuffing and all sorts of things that y'all are not getting a recipe for because I can in no way make those healthy. But a sped up version of that cooking. Now that it's done, we just need to measure out 1.5 cups, which should be pretty much all of your milk here. Yeah, it did scorch the bottom of my pan, just so you're aware of what happens when you cook milk down. But the FairLife milk is highest in protein for you, and as well as it doesn't contain lactose because it's ultra filtered, which is really nice. And you see it's taken on a little bit of that brown color that you expect when you pour evaporated milk out of the can at the store. So we let that cool for maybe 5 or so minutes, and then we are going to continue on our way. So we bring our mix back over, and there are 2 options for how to mix this. If you want to mix it by hand, go for it. Just add it little increments at a time, maybe 1/2 cup at a time, like you see here, and gently stir it together. And you'll see it's a nice, smooth, homogeneous mix, and you're just going to keep adding in those slow batches. Or you can do the blender method, which is my preferred way, and we're just going to add the remainder of our evaporated milk and give it a couple more gentle stirs with the spatula because we don't want our blender to send liquid flying everywhere. And we put our stick blender back in here, and we're just gonna whiz it up really quick. This is by far the fastest way to incorporate things, but again, you can always use a whisk or any other method of mixing that you want for your pumpkin pie. This is just my preferred way to get a smooth, creamy, decadent pie. Now I'm going to attempt to detach this, and it's not going to work, so eventually I will give up, but bear with me here, mostly because I'm too lazy to edit this out. You can hear the football game in the background, so that's always fun. Okay, so we've got our pie plate. I did not spray this. You do not need to. But you can see that nice silky pie mixture. It looks exactly like your typical pumpkin pie filling. Okay, so we're going to scrape as much of that in here as we can. Smooth out the top a little bit. Maybe a little too much if you're me. Top off your spatula so you waste as little as possible. And now we are going to go ahead and put this in our oven. So we started at 425 degrees for 15 minutes. For some reason, I felt like doing this countdown watching of the timer here. Thankfully, it's only 15 seconds, so we finally are getting there. So 15 minutes of 425, this is going to caramelize the outside of your pie and just give it that really nice caramelly flavor and give it all the color it is going to get. At the end of this time, we're going to go ahead and turn our temperature down to 350 degrees and bake it for another 40 minutes. And at the end, this is what you're left with. It will get a little bit of white specklage on top. That is normal. I served mine with a scoop of vanilla Halo Top ice cream. But if you look, we've got 74 calories, 7.5 grams of carbs, and 6.9 grams of protein. So this is a perfect dessert for you if you're looking for that holiday treat, but keeping your protein right in line with where it should be and your carbs nice and low.